so many things that you wouldn't even think have cameras, but they do. And they're potentially recording you. And it sounds nefarious. It's not all nefarious. It's just unexpected is all. Like ovens, a lot of smart ovens, they have cameras inside the oven to utilize AI to detect what type of food you're putting in there so that they can cook it to completion without you having to think. Which I guess inside the oven is much less invasive than, say, like a robot vacuum. Those things have cameras, and as they roam around cleaning your hardwood floors, the camera is scanning to make sure that there's no obstacles in the way, like you getting out of the shower butt naked. Even those little automatic pet feeders for your cats, they typically come with cameras. And I do think that that's a feature that a lot of people want. They want to see their cats eating. They want to make sure that their cats are getting fed if they're at work, unless you're this guy who posts on Reddit. Okay, so this is kind of a complicated one, but here goes. My girlfriend got a new job. So she got one of those auto feeders for her cat because she's going to be away a lot more now. And it's like a doctor feeder. So it has a camera in it and it can connect to Wi-Fi.
What's a doctor feeder, you say?
I think it's one of those fancy cat feeders. And he says it can connect to Wi-Fi. She can actually look at the camera while she's at work and even talk through it and send the cat treats, and it comes through the cat feeder. I said initially, I don't like the idea of you having a camera in the living room, but she was like, it's my place, so you shut the fuck up. So I did. I shut the fuck up. Anyhow, flash forward a couple of weeks on a Friday. I get out early and I was supposed to go to her place that night, but I just went out like 2 p.m. to chill until she got back home from work. I lay down on the couch. I completely forget about the camera, and I eventually start self-pleasuring because that's something that I just do. And apparently she's at work talking to her colleague about this cat and decides that she wants to show her colleague how she feeds it a treat and see if the cat comes over. So she turns the camera on with her colleague over her shoulder, and here I am on the couch just beating it. She's obviously very pissed off, like, how often do you do this? Which is not often. And she would say things like, you violated my space and all of this. And we've been fighting on and off for a few weeks now. And then to top it off, her colleague found my Instagram and has been liking some of my photos, like even ones that my girlfriend's not even in. And it's just kind of got me thinking, like, am I the asshole? I mean, that feels honestly more like a user problem than a cat feeder with a built-in camera problem. The cat feeders will just capture the cats sprinting to the feeder typically, and you'll hear the food come out, the kittens being startled by the new... There's a lot of viral cat feeder videos. The cat food will tumble out, and then the kittens will get so scared they jump like 3 feet in the air like a circus animal. It's usually just like more on the wholesome spectrum. People just love the cat videos, which is exactly why Tony and Ivy, this is a couple with 2 cats. They get a cat feeder. So Tony and Ivy and their 2 cats, and they get that cat feeder and they put it in their house. And on this particular day, this cat feeder is picking up something, just a lot of things, alarming things. But there's no built-in system to call the authorities because something is alarming, or even call the people who own the pet feeder. All this cat feeder does is just record.
So this cat feeder records by itself?
Yeah.
Oh, like a security camera?
Almost. They keep a data log.
Huh.
A little past midnight at 12:21, the wife, Ivy, she's in her 20s. She walks into the kitchen to close up shop for the night, if you will. I mean, she's cleaning up, she's turning off all the lights. And by 1:04 a.m., it just seems like the whole house is going to bed. The lights are off, there's not really action, the cat camera is not picking up anything, but it's just downstairs. It sees the living room, it sees the kitchen, but it's not seeing the entirety of the house. And then 4:43 a.m., this is really early in the morning, Tony, the husband, suddenly appears in the cat feeder camera, and his shirt looks like, almost like he's been painting. There's just deep red colors everywhere, some sort of pigment. He goes out of the frame, and when he comes back, he's holding one of those wood saws that you turn on and the blade just starts rotating to cut the wood, but it's not rotating, it's turned off right now. And he's looking at it, and he brings it up to his neck, and his finger is on the button to turn it on, and he's about to press down, and he's very tense. It's almost like he's just waiting for the courage to press it, and then he doesn't. And then he walks off. Then the next time he's caught on the pet feeder, his entire arm is swollen. There's like this thick red liquid on him, and it's very clear that it's blood. Like there's just blood everywhere. But Tony himself is not injured. Not even a little bit. Like that circular saw, he didn't do anything. There's no injuries on him. There's not even a cut or a bruise really, other than his swollen arm. So where's all this blood coming from? And what has he been doing all night? And why is it that we haven't seen Ivy since midnight? And what is he gonna do when he realizes that this cat feeder is recording his every move? We would like to thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support the National Network to End Domestic Violence. NNEDV is a nonprofit dedicated to ending workplace, relationship, and stalking violence. This episode's partnerships have also made it possible to support Rotten Mango's team of dedicated researchers. We'd also like to thank you guys for your continued support. As always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. Today's case involves topics like DV, so please watch with discretion. We also worked with our professional Chinese translators since the news it takes place in the US, but there was a lot more discussion in Chinese media about this case, but a lot of quotes, statements may be translated and shortened or condensed for brevity. So with that being said, let's get into it. Chinese is arguably one of the hardest languages to learn. And I'm not just saying that as somebody who has been trying to half-heartedly learn this language for the past 12 years of my life being with my Chinese husband. I just know how to say the very important stuff like yes, no, thank you, and that's way too expensive. But there are words in the Chinese language that mean one thing, but also sound like another thing, and there's a lot of these. So for example, cup sounds like tragedy.
Yeah,
Can you say cup?
Sure. I guess cups is like 悲剧.
How do you say tragedy?
Tragedy, 悲剧.
So it sounds so much alike that there are now sayings in Chinese where they say life is like a cup. If it's washed, it breaks. Life is like a tragedy. If it's washed, it breaks. It's like a play on words. They say porridge sounds like. So on social media, a lot of younger people will say things like I porridge you instead of I like you. Can you say porridge?
Oh, 我稀饭 like okay, 喜欢 稀饭 and 喜欢. All right, okay.
The fruit pear sounds a lot like pressure, they say. So people will say like you feel a mountain of pear. So the fruit, the pear.
Pear? 压力山大. Okay.
So instead of saying like I feel a mountain of pressure, they say I feel a mountain of pears. And one of the reasons that you can't even gift somebody a clock or a watch as a gift. So typically in Chinese culture, I think also in Korean culture, although I'm not sure if it stems from this reasoning, but if you give somebody a clock, the words give a clock also sound like attend a funeral.
Yes, 送终.
So when you give a clock, that's really bad. So a lot of the times, if you gift somebody a clock or a watch, they will give you $1 in return. So it seems more like a purchase, a trade, versus, giving somebody a clock. Because you're almost wishing them death. And to make it even trickier, there are even number sounds. So 520 sounds like I love you. People will text 520 instead of texting I love you, and everybody knows exactly what it means. There's the long one. What's the long one? It's like
it's like 5201314, like I love you my whole entire life, something like that.
So people will just send a sequence of numbers and just think that you get the most deepest, profound confession of love.
And May 20 is the Chinese Valentine's Day now.
Because it's 520. So I love you. Because numbers just mean a lot of things. Like a lot of Chinese buyers will make sure the house number doesn't sound or mean anything else that sounds negative. Lots of people don't like the number 4 because it sounds like death. But when you're in the Bay Area in San Francisco and you're buying a house where all the tech people are buying a house, it's very difficult to be picky. There's not a lot of options. And the options that are there are already in the midst of bidding wars. You have to act fast. For a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that's less than 2,000 square feet, by the way, about 1,800 square feet, which is, okay, that's not a bad size. It's just the fact that it's over $2 million for less than 2,000 square feet. $2 million, and it's a 20-minute drive from Google's campus in SF. It's going to get snatched up. So regardless if the house number is 714, because 714, it sounds in Chinese like wife will die. Regardless of that fact, you're going to want to get the house. January 15th, 2024, police are inside a house, 714, trying not to flinch at the metallic scent. The officers testified later that you walk into the house and it smells like blood. There's no other way to describe it. Everything smells like blood. You can't smell anything else because everybody's house has a very unique scent. Not that that is important to the officers, but it can tell them a lot. If you smell lots of feces and urine, you could probably come to the conclusion that there is someone that is not well kept here and maybe not even a mentally good state. If you smell other things like the scent of a dead body, people pick up on the smells. They can't even smell anything but that strong, eye-watering metallic scent. They're performing a wellness check when they find a suspect in a nearly catatonic state. That's the only way they can describe it. Just they're on their knees staring. The officers, they broke down the door and there's just a suspect on their knees staring at the wall. It doesn't matter that the officers are slamming down the doors to get in. They're just all screaming like, get your hands in the air. None of it matters. The suspect, it seems like they saw nothing, heard nothing, don't care about anything. They're just catatonic. They're just staring. And right next to them is a dead body. The police, they walk the suspect out with their hands firmly behind the back. They're walking past a little cabinet, and this cabinet has a bunch of trinkets on top. They're guiding the suspect out of the house like a dog. And the suspect leans down onto the cabinet. So he leans towards the cabinet and with their mouth bites the top of this picture frame and chucks it like a dog ripping apart a squeaky toy. Just chucks it onto the floor. The picture frame shatters everywhere. There's glass everywhere. And inside the picture frame is a photo of Ivy. The same Ivy that is now caked in blood, laying on the bedroom floor. Her face is completely unrecognizable, and she's dead.
The photo, is it just Ivy in there?
Just Ivy. The wife of the house is now dead. Tony and Ivy are a 27-year-old couple from China, and they put $500,000 down on this house. They mortgaged the rest, which is a pretty substantial down payment. They're able to afford it considering both of them are software engineers at Google. They buy the house 1 year into getting married. They get 2 cats. They even have a dedicated Instagram for their cats named Cooper and Kiwi. By all accounts, I would say that they seem like a very standard software engineer tech couple. They're obsessed with their cats. They commission artwork for their cats. They buy those cute little party hats for their cats during their birthdays. The cats lay on their laps as they're working from home. And when they're not taking pictures of their cats for their Instagram pages, they're going skiing, they're going snowboarding, they're going hiking with their other software engineer couples in the Bay Area. Tony's Instagram bio lists that he's into photography, volleyball, skiing, rock climbing, and a bunch of other sports. Ivy's adds yarn and gardening tours, and they're both Chinese. So just to like paint a picture of both of them, Tony gives the very first impression you give of Tony is quiet academia focused nerd. There's really no other way to describe it. He's always wearing black framed rectangular glasses. His hair is very short and neat. It looks very efficient, like he doesn't want to spend too much time on his hair. He has a very slender build. He has a very unassuming face. The most noticeable thing about him is that he's 6 feet 2 inches tall. But other than that, he just kind of looks like a software engineer. He also has a very rigid look to his face. It's not necessarily cold, but he appears guarded. He doesn't seem like the type, and by all accounts, people say he is not the type to engage in small talk in the elevator. He's not gonna be smiling at you when you're a random coworker that gets into the Google elevator and he's in there. He's probably gonna give you like a curt nod, if anything. Whereas his wife, Ivy, she looks a lot softer. She's not super expressive, people say. She's also not very expressive with her face, but she looks a little bit more open. People say that she's the type that will smile at your jokes even though they're really not funny. But it's not like a over the top, like, oh my God, you're so funny. Like, where did you learn that joke? It's just like a very polite smile so that you don't feel awkward. She also has very bookish qualities to her. She feels very approachable and unapproachable all at once. The way everyone describes her is she's the one that will get you coffee one day in the office. And then she's going to remember your coffee order 3 years later. And you're not even her friend. You're just like the person that works in the room next to her. She feels very approachable in that sense because she's very kind and sweet, but also unapproachable because she will probably score in like the top 1% of an Ivy League school at all times and somehow be the smartest person in the room at the same time. And you feel like you can't talk to them because maybe you feel insecure that you're not that smart. But she doesn't make you feel that way. The two of them, they get married in 2022. In 2023, they buy this $2 million house in the Bay Area, and both of them are now working at Google as software engineers. But just because everything appears to be near perfect from the outside does not make it true. Do you know people who are obsessed with their first loves? It's like a thing, okay? They don't marry their first love in the way that, the way that they think about their first love, you would think that they're possessed to the point where they almost idolize their first love in a way that everybody around them is very confused. They talk about their first love as if this is a member of Blackpink, an idol that is untouchable, somebody that would never grace planet Earth ever again. And everyone around them is just thinking, they're great, but like, are we talking about the same person right now? Because this is so crazy. I don't know what you're saying. It's like this longing that they have this unreachable love. And you're like, no, and they're pretty reachable. Like, I saw him working at the vape shop down the street. Like, he hasn't gone anywhere. I don't know why we're trying to make him out to be this Prince Charming that ran away. He's down there selling vapes. You can go get him tomorrow if you want. Probably tonight. I don't think he has plans. By the way that they talk about their first love, you would think that they were the one that got away and became an Oscar-winning actor and actress that they'll never be able to connect to again. It's never that serious. But some people just idolize their first love.
Chinese has a saying called, so guys will describe, sometimes not even like first love, but even like a girl that they like loved.
The white flower?
White, they call it like almost white moonlight.
Yes, white moonlight.
White moonlight.
That's what I'm just about to say.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
So they call it white moonlight. And then there's the other aspect where they call it like the red rose or something, like the red moonlight. So some people idolize their first love as this white moonlight, so pure, so innocent.
Just pureness.
And then a lot of people will start idolizing this red rose, which is a very passionate love. So this comes later in life, but this is a passionate love that they don't end up with, but they remember this relationship. And so there's almost this very annoyance that people have in China of when guys are always haunted by either the white moonlight or the red rose, and it's just like, get over yourself. It's not that big of a deal. There's even books written about this in China where a female author writes about how men tend to have two loves. The white rose and the red rose. They have two love interests and they're going to pick between one of them. So the white rose is the first love. But if he marries his first love, she's no longer going to be the white rose. She becomes a grain of sticky rice on his clothes, just dull and irritating. And then he's going to yearn after, because he married the white rose, he's going to yearn after the red rose. The red rose is the passionate mistress that makes him feel alive and sensual and burning with love. But here's the thing. If he had chosen the red rose and doesn't marry the white rose, if he married the red rose, she will become mosquito blood on the wall. Sordid marriage, he will consider her ugly and venomous even. And then he will daydream and idolize about what life would have been like had he married the white rose. The eternal, pure moonlight before his bed type of woman. It is a very deep outlook on males' need to conquer women, stating that this is the type of system where no real woman can win because the moment she's possessed by the man, she gets downgraded and then the other woman is almost like a mythologized.
Yeah.
It's about how men only fantasize about those who he cannot conquer and how men tend to construct women as symbols and then they blame the woman once they become symbols for them. But it's also just a very interesting concept, and I'm sure it's not taken seriously, but it's so widely known that people will even use the categories to determine what kind of ex they were. So like your last ex, are they your white rose or your red rose? To the point that the question can even be asked at dinner parties. Would you rather be a white rose to your ex or a red rose to your ex?
Like asking a girl.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's even memes about it with some people hating the concept of the white rose because a lot of girls have been compared to a guy's first love. And it's really fucking annoying because typically first loves, they say, it's not even a real relationship. So like you're in this relationship when you're in middle school, high school, sometimes college, you never even have a real relationship with that person to see all the bad things that come from being in a relationship because there's a lot of hardship. So of course you idolize the relationship that has no disappointment in it because you weren't old enough to be disappointed by the relationship.
Yeah.
It's just, people are saying it's very annoying to be compared to the first love in relationships.
That's so interesting. These are very like Chinese specific struggles of couples and relationship. I know exactly what they're talking about though.
Yeah, and I feel like you don't really hear that a lot in the US.
Yeah. Because in China, before college, relationship is pretty much forbidden by school and by parents. You're not allowed to publicly be dating, right? Very different from here. So there, a lot of these relationship is like underground. It's forbidden. So it's like very subtle. You pass a note maybe. You look at someone. You barely touch hands when you're going out. Like it's this very subtle type of relationship. So people have this like very pureness frame of lens when you're looking back at it maybe.
It's very bizarre.
It's really weird. Yeah.
It's really weird
yeah.
because I feel like in the US, when you think of relationships in high school, you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
run.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's so strange. But I just think that the comparison is very toxic. And Ivy hates the fact that Tony will always compare her to his high school ex-girlfriend that he dated on and off in high school and in college. His first love. And her name is Jiang. Jiang, the ex-girlfriend.
Was that in US or was that in China?
In China. But they all come to the US. All three of them.
When did they come to US?
This was during their PhD years.
Oh, so they finished college and all that. Wow.
I mean, they all went to the same college in China, and then they all immigrated to the United States. And then they all start working for Alphabet. So all
Google?
of, some of them work for Google, some of them work for subsidiaries of Alphabet. which is the parent company of Google.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
messy. Wow.
Yeah, very messy, but that will come up. But Tony will compare Ivy to his very first love, Jiang, comparing their appearances, their education, which was practically the same, their income, hobbies, interests, even their personality traits, even going as far to imply that if Ivy was not his wife and had he married Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, instead of Ivy, he probably would be living better now.
The fuck?
I don't think it's very easy to cheat on your partner these days. I feel like everything has a digital footprint. Text messages, emails, Instagram DMs, Snapchat. Yeah, you can make the messages go away, but they can still see when you were last active. I think you can see like top friends or whatever that's changing. You can delete as much as you want, but there's going to be ways that you're going to get caught. Maybe they're not going to see the exact messages, but they're going to see something that's weird. Even things that you think don't have a paper trail or you forget that they do, like Venmo. A few years ago, even Uber, you were not able to delete a ride from your ride history on Uber. You can do that now. I think they got a lot of complaints. I don't know why you would need to delete it. Like, who's deleting it? But now they've fixed it so that you can actually delete specific rides from your ride history. So when you go to your account and go to ride history, you can delete specific rides. But one of the more common ways as of recently is in the files.
The what?
People will cheat in the files.
What file?
Google Documents. It sounds so strange, but it's rather common these days. People will use a Google Doc,
like a shared
doc, to have conversations in real time.
Oh my God.
Because when you share a Google Doc, people can comment and it updates instantly.
Yeah. So
people
they
will
use that
have-
as a text message.
Yes. And no one
Holy-
goes through their partner's Google Docs because you're like, what's in there? Nothing. Work stuff.
I guess that's very on brand with
For
their
Google.
job, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, but one person on Reddit posts, my husband used Google Docs for 3 years to communicate with his affair partner. They had a shared Google Doc where they would talk and make plans. I mean, it was simple but effective. I read it all. The virtual sex, the I love yous, the secret meetings. I had my soon-to-be ex-husband's password and I would occasionally snoop on his phone to ease my mind. But in 3 years, I never thought to check Google Docs. In a shared document, you can type back and forth like a chat, even leaving comments to things, and it gets updated in real time. Because typically people use it to collaborate on work or school projects, and it's unconventional, but that's the whole point. That way, nobody will know who you're talking to. Your partner's going through your text messages, highly unlikely they're going through your Google Docs to make sure you're doing anything weird there. So she's just letting everyone know, hey, just so you know, check the Google Docs.
Wow. Well, we know someone who use cash transfer app, right?
Yes. So there's like this cash transfer app where you can message someone, I guess, to like send money.
Yeah.
And they were using that chat, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But it's not public, but still. And Google Docs is also, I think both of them are equally so insane, especially if it's titled like Google Docs. If it's titled something as boring as like budget sheet for Q3, who's going to look at it? If you want to look at something very private, someone's inner thoughts, something that they're hiding, you might even go through the Apple Notes app. You're not going to go into Google Docs. Mm-hmm. You're not going to go through somebody's Google Docs unless you're Ivy and you happen to stumble upon a Google Doc file between Tony and his first love from college, Jiang, the ex-girlfriend. It is a nearly 20,000 word document detailing how Tony and Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, miss each other, how right before Tony proposed to Ivy, he had first asked Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, if she would consider transferring to work at Google instead of working at Waymo, which is all part of the same umbrella company. But instead of working at Waymo, yes, that's like the driverless cars. She works at Waymo. Transfer to Google, move to the Bay Area because she's working at Waymo in Seattle. Move to the Bay Area and they could buy a house together. They talk about how Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, said, no, I don't want to do that. And that's why he does everything else with Ivy instead. So once the ex-girlfriend said no, he proposes to Ivy, he gets married to her, and they buy a house in the Bay Area together. But he would still be commenting and writing in the Google Doc saying things like, I miss the old days. Which is already bad enough because, you know, why are they still talking to each other? Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, also writes that this is supposed to be like she started this Google Doc to send it as let's get rid of the past feelings and get some closure on our relationship. She says it's more like a personal diary for herself to just hold on to the things and then write it down and let go of the past. Which she feels the need to send this Google Doc to Tony, and that's how they start this weird conversation, this 20,000 word conversation on Google Docs.
Wait, so this whole doc was sent by Jiang?
The ex-girlfriend.
When did she send this?
This is way after Tony's married, bought the house, has 2 cats, everything.
Oh.
This is like 2-3 months before Ivy is killed.
So Jiang reached out first?
Yeah.
Really?
She reached out first because she said she was just going through a really tough time in her life. She says out of everyone in her life, he's really the only one that she can confide in. She writes in the document that before all of this, before Tony married Ivy, before Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, got engaged to her boyfriend, Tony was the only one that was there for her. And they were just at different places in their lives. She thought it would be okay to move on. But then she found out that her boyfriend turned fiance that she's dating, he also works for Alphabet. He works for DeepMind, Google DeepMind. Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
They all work in the same building?
No. So they live in Seattle. Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, and her boyfriend live in Seattle. So their offices are in Seattle. Okay. And then Tony and Ivy, they work on the Google campus in the Bay Area, but it's massive.
Yeah.
And they don't really run into each other a lot at work. You'll see why later. But it's just interesting that they all work for the same parent company.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, September 2023, Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, finds out that her fiance has been soliciting sex workers, and the two of them end their engagement. She's distressed. She's in need of emotional support and comfort. And the only person that she can think of reaching out to is her ex-boyfriend, Tony. Apparently, it's like a thing in these tech-centered areas. So the Bay Area, Seattle, where a lot of the tech companies are centered, they have a lot of these massage parlors that are just fronts for sex work. And a lot of the clientele that go there are just engineers, software engineers, tech bros. They go, they get their massages done. For the police, it's very easy. It's kind of like what they do on Canal Street where they like bust the counterfeiters. It's like a routine. They'll go there every once in a while and just make a bunch of arrests at these massage parlors. And Jiang's now ex-fiance was arrested at one of these massage parlors for soliciting sex work. So she finds out, and I'm sure there's a humiliation aspect to it because all these tech people, they run in the same circles. She's in need of emotional support. She's in need of comfort. And the only person that she can think of reaching out to is her ex-boyfriend, Tony. She sends him this very lengthy Google document, and she says that this is just me trying to get closure on our relationship, as I'm just categorically thinking about every romantic relationship that I've had and what led me to this point in my life where I'm now ending my engagement. I am also looking back at our very long relationship and I'm having a lot of thoughts and feelings. I didn't even want to send it to you, but I'm going to send it to you. She writes in the document, if I had known I would have been betrayed by my fiance like this, I might as well have accepted your request to get back together a few years ago before you married Ivy. You know, the request to move to California, buy a house together. The only problem is if Tony were to divorce Ivy and start over with Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, she says there would be way too much drama. And Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, is not ready for that drama. She also doesn't want that type of reputation to follow her around. And she's like, you and Ivy bought a house together. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of financial splitting of the assets. And like, no offense, I don't really want to date you if you're broke.
Dang, she said that?
Yeah, basically.
Why the hell are you sending this letter then?
Yeah. So she's like, you're going to have a bad reputation. You're also going to be broke. So I can't be with you, but I just wish I could turn back in time and then take your offer from years ago before you married Ivy. And, you know, that would have been much easier. I just do not have a single clue about the inner workings of such a woman and her mind, but they're both commenting back and forth after she sends this Google document, and it's almost like they're texting. And in the document, it's very clear that the two of them have even met up in person. And Ivy's reading this. Yes, they've met up after Ivy's married, has the house. They actually meet up 2 months before Ivy is dead.
Wait, how did Ivy find this?
There's two variations. Some people suspect that she decided to go looking because there were lots of things sending her sensors off that there was an affair happening. And then there's another version where some people speculate that maybe Tony showed her the document to say, see, she's the one that reached out to me. I wasn't the one that was trying to seek her out.
But we know for sure Ivy saw this.
Because she comments on this Google Doc later. They met about 2 months before Ivy is killed, and this is around Ivy and Tony's wedding anniversary. Tony decides that he's going to meet his ex-girlfriend. When Ivy sees this Google document, she makes a comment of her own with her own account, and she writes, I hate you. I hate all of you. And she will be dead by the end of that week. Wang and her husband are very nervous. They're waiting outside the front door. They already rang it once. And Wang she's reaching for the doorbell again. She's hesitating. She's debating whether or not she should ring it a second time, or is that's way too clingy. When the door opens, standing there at the entryway is Ivy which is Wang's really good friend. So Wang and her husband are standing there, and Ivy just opened the door. Ivy and Wang have been close girlfriends for years now. Their parents even know each other. They have the same trajectory of life. They both immigrated from China and they both work in the tech industry, and they kind of get along in that sense where they just click. Both of them came to the US, they have a bond, and naturally Wang's husband and Tony become friends, but they're not as close as Wang and Ivy. They're just friends because they're the husbands, really. So Wang is checking in on Ivy, and she just knows that Ivy is not doing well. When Ivy opens that door, her eyes are bloodshot. It looks like she's been crying all day. And Ivy lets the couple in. Wang and her husband awkwardly sit on the couch in the living room. Tony's also there. He's like barely engaging. He's, for the most part, very quiet, giving short answers to any and all questions that Wang and her husband ask, such as, everything okay? Okay. Neither Tony or Ivy mentioned that they were just fighting like 20 minutes before Wang and her husband came unannounced. But they don't really need to say anything because this is the most awkward living room gathering that they've ever had. Wang and her husband try to steer the conversation to work. How's work been? Because you were talking about work. And Tony will barely respond to any of the questions. Ivy starts responding for him. That, he's just anxious with all the ongoing layoffs in the industry. He's just worried about getting laid off. And if he does, he's going to have a hard time finding another job in the industry. And then the doorbell rings because Wang and her husband had ordered food. And she thought, maybe if we just eat together, it's going to make it less awkward, like ease some of the tension. They thought it would help. Whatever is happening between Tony and Ivy, it's just very tense, and Wang wants to help. So they sit down, they open up all the to-go boxes, and Tony is just quiet the entire time. The only time he responds is they go, Tony, do you want some rice? Yeah, that's it. No other response, nothing. He's not even engaging. During dinner, Ivy tries to answer all these questions that Wang and her husband are asking. Oh, yeah, he's just stressed from work. He was saying that he was having some auditory hallucinations recently and muscle tension because he's been so stressed. Wang and her husband don't really know how to respond exactly because this is the first time that they're hearing about something like this, but they want to be supportive. But they say it was just weird because Ivy said that he's experiencing all these crazy things from the stress of work, but they don't see anything out of the ordinary. Nothing indicates that he's listening to the walls and hears voices where they're not coming from. He just seems quiet. He just seems like he's pissed off even, or just got into a fight with his partner. Nothing about it seems like he's having a full mental breakdown. So maybe that's just something he told Ivy. Nobody knows. The rest of that dinner, largely silent. Nobody's really talking. Wang and her husband, they're just offering surface level comfort at this point because what else can they do? And as they're about to leave, after the most awkward dinner that they've ever experienced, when they get outside, Wang's husband goes to the car and Wang is standing there. Ivy pulls her aside and she's telling her, I think I'm gonna divorce Tony. What? Why? He's still talking to his ex-girlfriend. And we had a fight earlier today and he said things like, my life would have been so much better if it weren't for you.
When was this in the timeline?
This is a few hours before Ivy is dead.
This is the night of?
The night of. And Wang wants to stay, but Ivy's like, just go. I'll text you tomorrow. Just go. It's fine. You guys already stayed long enough. I mean, what are they going to do? Go through another awkward dinner? So Wang gets in the car with her husband. They drive off. And they just feel really off about this. I mean, the only reason that they even showed up today is because earlier that day, so they just had dinner with Ivy and Tony. But earlier for lunch, they were hosting this huge lunch gathering with 9 of their closest friends. It's been on the calendar for a while, but Ivy texts Wang last minute telling her, hey, we're not gonna be able to make it to lunch. She's like, what do you mean? Why? We've been planning this for so long. All of our friends are coming. You have to come. And she's like, no, it just Tony's really stressed about work, and so I just don't want to go. The whole lunch, Wang feels really weird about this. She's feeling very uncomfortable. And then a few hours right after lunch, Tony's parents call Wang because all their parents know each other back in China. All their parents live in China, but they all kind of know each other and they know that all their kids are friends.
The parents from China is calling her?
Yes. So it's not like, their parents were all family friends and then the kids were friends. It's like all these kids became friends and then they introduced their parents all to one another.
Okay.
And they all have each other's WeChat's numbers. So Tony's parents are WeChat calling Wang. And she's like, what's going on? This is so random. She picks up and Tony's parents are like, hey, listen, I would not have called you unless something serious is happening. But have you spoken to Tony or his wife, Ivy, recently? He hasn't been in touch for the past month, and this is very unlike him. And when I tried to talk to Ivy, it seemed like they were going through a fight. It seemed like they were just not doing well. So I don't know what's going on. Wang is like, well, I was supposed to see them for lunch, but they didn't show up. She hangs up, and this seems to be the biggest factor of why she goes over for dinner. I think that if her friend just said, I'm not going, maybe she wouldn't have gone for dinner because it's very intrusive for her to just barge in and be like, why are you guys fighting? Tell me about your fight. Let's talk about work. It seems like a lot, right? But it's the fact that Tony's parents even called her. So she's like, I got to do something. She gets her husband in the car and is like, we have to go visit Tony and Ivy. Like, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight unless we go visit Tony and Ivy. They even order the food almost as an excuse to stay longer and try to get more answers and try to help more. But it just is so uncomfortable. There's no talking, there's no reasoning, there's no comforting, there's nothing. The whole night, throughout the entire dinner, even after their demeanors are off, they both seem unusually quiet. Ivy, there were moments where Ivy would be responding and then she would just zone out. Tony's even more quiet than normal. So Wang and her husband, they drive home that night and they just cannot shake this feeling that something bad is happening. Tony and Ivy's relationship has been really rocky since the beginning. Technically, on paper, I would say that Tony and Ivy are perfect for each other. At least most people would think that. Both of them graduated from Tsinghua University, which is one of China's top universities. It's like their Yale. It's their Harvard.
Yeah.
And even there's those little quizzes that give you impossible options. Like you can pick to have one, $5 million. Your pet gets to live forever. You get to marry your soulmate. You get to graduate from Tsinghua. Most people would choose Tsinghua because it's not even just like you get the respect, the reputation. Yeah. It is the most elite school that you can get into.
And education is weighted much heavier in Asia. Yeah.
It doesn't just make you a better work prospect, it's just the prestige. So they both major in computer science and engineering at Tsinghua University. Then both of them immigrate to the US and they
Does that mean like his first love also is from Tsinghua?
Yeah. Then they both immigrate to the US and both Tony and Ivy, they finish their PhD in computer science at UC San Diego. So once they graduate from UC San Diego, they go naturally to the Bay Area to join, well, they were just trying to join one of the Mango companies. They used to call it something else, but now they call it Mango. So it's Meta, Apple, NVIDIA, Google, and OpenAI.
When you say that, like they were not dating in college in China though, right?
They were not dating at Tsinghua University. They start kind of becoming closer at UC San Diego.
Okay. Were they friends?
Some people say that they knew of each other at Tsinghua.
Okay.
But he was still on and off with his ex-girlfriend at Tsinghua University.
I see.
Then at UC San Diego, they were friends. They kind of knew each other. And then they started slowly dating.
Got it.
So right after graduating, they both don't actually immediately go to Google. Tony goes to Google and Ivy actually goes to Amazon as a software engineer. And Tony specifically starts working at the YouTube Shorts algorithm department of Google. Strongsville, Ohio. A car carrying 3 young adults slams into a brick building at 100 miles per hour, leaving 2 dead and 1 fighting for their life. The 17-year-old behind the wheel, Mackenzie Shrilla, was driving her boyfriend Dom and his friend Davian home from a party when the tragedy occurred. Authorities arrive on scene, but what initially seemed like a heartbreaking accident began to look like a calculated crime scene. The crash features interviews with the police, friends, and families of everyone in the car as it unwinds the truth of what occurred. Where do the fatal mistakes end and the cold-blooded murder begin? Watch The Crash, May 15th, only on Netflix. I've discovered the secret to fresh, easy laundry days, and I'm never going back. Tide Evo tiles have evolved my laundry game for the better. Tide Evo is packed with 6 concentrated cleaning layers that activate instantly in water to fight 100% of common stains, including grass and dirt. There's no measuring, no pouring, and no mess. On top of that, Tide Evo has the environment in mind. I feel good buying a laundry product that doesn't come in those big, bulky plastic containers that I think takes a long time to break down. Tide Evo tiles come in completely recyclable packaging and they work just as great in tap cold cycles, meaning less energy wasted heating water. Tide Evo is also fantastic for travel. I'll just throw a few in my bag or like a side pocket and they lay flat. My clothes smell fresh and I'm never thinking about liquids through TSA, let alone leaks or spills. Remember, it takes real teamwork to solve a crime and to fight stubborn stains. Try new Tide Evo Real Laundry Magic. So on paper, it seems like the two of them are on the same page. Their resumes are stacked. But for the very super cutthroat Chinese matchmakers, they would say that Tony is marrying down, which makes me want to punch the nearest car salesman in my vicinity. But they're They say that for high school, Tony attended Chengdu No. 7 High School. It's widely regarded as one of the top schools in the province or even the entire country of China. So Chengdu No. 7 is known as a key point high school. So they receive priority when it comes to funding and resources. They get the best teachers. They have the most funding for educational resources. They have a stunning campus that looks more like a college campus than a high school. They have mini parks and koi ponds on the campus of a high school. They also have the highest number of kids going to the Ivy Leagues in China. In 2022, that one high school had 70 students admitted into Tsinghua and Beijing University. In 2023, 79 students. 2024, 90 students. 2025, 99 students admitted. They also have a study abroad program, which Tony went to for his senior year of the high school. It's $50,000 a semester, just so he can study in the US. Classmates remember Tony coming from a very, very well-off family. They believe that his dad was a leader in some sort of government-affiliated organization. He had a thing for model airplanes. He was like a key member of the school's Science and Technology Association that his parents were involved in. He would also write these like study tips for other classmates of like how to systematically remember material. Yeah, he even won a province-wide, statewide award when he was in elementary school for outstanding youth citizen of Sichuan province. So they're saying he went to this high school and his parents are very powerful in the government and they seem very well off. Ivy also comes from a very good high school, a key point high school in her province, really cutthroat school. The school has a very brutal hierarchy starting in middle school where you get a rolling class system. So students are ranked and reshuffled based on exam performance.
Your ranking, right?
Yeah, so class 1 is known as the key point class. They get the best teachers and the best resources. The brightest students, toward the end, all the way to class 27, you really have students that are like left to fend for themselves, if you will. And this high school is already like the smartest of the smart kids. So if you're in the more advanced classes, the elite and key point classes, you typically end up studying a lot more. It's relentless. It's normal for students to forego lunch breaks and routinely study past midnight. Some of them will stand up against the walls in the hallway to stay awake to memorize material. The school though, this school specifically that she went to, so Tony's school, most of the kids were really well off. Ivy's school, there's a huge wealth gap. Some students come from very privileged backgrounds similar to Tony. They get to eat whatever they want, spend as much money on school supplies as they want, get the latest technology, everything. Whereas students who don't do well, you know who they are because most of the time they're studying and eating steamed buns and pickles.
Is it Ivy?
Yeah, Ivy comes from an average family. She doesn't come from a family that's not doing well, which honestly, you would think that this is a better catch because
yeah, it's more impressive, right?
Yeah, but I guess when you are talking about East Asian culture of prestige and family lineage, they're like, well, Tony's a super catch. And Ivy is just a poor girl who clawed through it to become even more successful. Who cares about that? So she comes from a very average family. I mean, they were okay. So much so that even during Ivy's senior year of high school, Ivy's mom quit her job for a year, which is actually very common amongst the more average families in terms of socioeconomic status. For the privileged families, usually one of the parents don't work. But for the average families, one of the parents will take off for a year because it's not like the schools in the US where you naturally live very close to your school, especially if you're in the public school system, because that's how it's zoned. You go to a school because you live in that zip code. But in China, you have to travel to certain schools, especially if you get into one of these key point high schools. So her mom quit her job, so they rented this tiny little apartment near the high school campus so that she could support her full time. They're known as full-time study support moms. There's like a whole culture and language and groups about it. Parents relocate because they want to eliminate long commutes. They want to make sure that the kids don't have to do laundry, commute. They're cooking all the food. Ivy maintains consistent high rankings all through high school, and ultimately she scores 702 out of 750 on the 2014
Gaokao, yeah. Like the exam of the college entry exam.
And she is the city's science top scholar. So she scores the highest in science. With one teacher saying about Ivy, she's very well behaved and introverted, not usually expressive, but she's particularly outstanding in the science subjects, still balanced across the others, including English and Mandarin. Her grades are excellent, and the Gaokao is exceptional. She also holds herself to very, very high standards. The teacher recalls that one time she forgot to bring her books to class, and the teacher is like, okay, I know you, Ivy. Like, you're not one of those kids that's messing around and forgetting carelessly. Like, it's just one day that you forgot your books. She was like sobbing just in the corner because she was so disappointed in herself. She was so upset with herself for making a dumb mistake like that. But and both of them end up at Tsinghua. But because Tony's parents are high up in government positions and Ivy's parents are just normal, well-to-do people, the matchmaking according to a lot of people, was not equal. According to a lot of people that you would maybe want to punch in the face. But they're not working with matchmakers. They're just naturally meeting each other at either Tsinghua or UC San Diego. They start dating officially around the time that they're at UC San Diego, and a fellow classmate says, their relationship seemed really respectful and harmonious. I mean, that's really the only way that you can describe it. They're not really people that tell you a lot, though. So it's not like everyone would know about their dating history. They're not really someone that like posts lovey-dovey things on social media. They're not going around just like making out in hallways. They're just very private. They say that Ivy barely spoke. I mean, she's very quiet. She's not the type to be like, oh, this is my boyfriend. This is who I'm dating. Let me tell you about my relationship. So people don't really know, but it just seemed like a good match just based off their energies. So when they graduate, they're still dating, now working at separate companies. And Ivy decides that she's going to make the very unusual choice of leaving Amazon to go work at Google. Now, I will say, I have heard that Google is a better working environment than Amazon. However, Ivy was up for a promotion when she left Amazon.
So they are all making very, very good money.
Yeah,
right?
It estimated probably total compensation $200,000-$300,000 a year.
Each.
Yes, each.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But like he was comparing her to her ex in money and income, right? He was talking about that.
Yeah, so I was looking at, I mean, I couldn't get an exact, but based off of their job descriptions, it seemed like maybe the ex-girlfriend was making a few tens of thousands of dollars more a year, which is a lot, but not really when you're making $300,000 a year. Yeah. It's not so like bizarre, one of them is making $300,000 and the other one's making $50,000.
Yeah, it's almost like you just want to put her down for whatever. Everything, right?
Everything, because that's what he does at Amazon. So she's working at Amazon. And like I said, yes, I have heard that Google is a better working environment. So naturally, a lot of people might leave Amazon to work at Google depending on the position that they want to get into. But Ivy is up for a promotion at Amazon. So technically, a lot of people are saying it would be a lot more advantageous had she stayed at Amazon, got the promotion, maybe even worked in that position for a little while, and then she could actually,
reapply
to Google, and she could probably get in at a better position and a better pay, total comp.
Yeah.
That's what a normal person would do. But why did she move to Google all of a sudden? Like, did she just really want to work at Google? Was there an opening? And she was like, you know what? I don't mind taking a pay cut and I'll just go work at Google. But people who are really close to the couple say that's probably not why. They say that Tony, he's very calm, but he seems really controlling. And there were lots of, from what people remember, tense fights about Tony doesn't know anyone at Amazon, and he doesn't know if Ivy is talking to or potentially even flirting with a lot of male colleagues because he would never know. He just always seemed very anxious that Ivy was cheating on him, which seems like a masterclass in just projection. But one person close to the couple states that Ivy was not excited to work at Google. I mean, she likes Google, but like she was really excited to get promoted at Amazon. She was about to be up for this promotion. She had her whole career track that was going well. It would make more sense to get the promotion and then, move to a different company. The only reason she moved was to maintain her relationship with Tony. There were rumors that Tony at gatherings with people, a former classmate of theirs would say, okay, it was weird. During gatherings, he would constantly be glued to her side and he would just watch her closely. But it doesn't come off as like the kind of closeness that you expect from a very affectionate couple of like, oh, he just wants to be by her. Oh, he just wants to help her when she's grabbing something. It almost seems like he's analyzing every single person that she's talking to, every single thing that she's saying. It feels like he's monitoring her. It didn't feel sweet. It didn't feel, like he's just a little protective. It just felt creepy. It felt overbearing and uncomfortable, like aggressively possessive to the point where the two of them would get into some sort of argument at the gathering. They're never like fighting in front of people, but it's like you can tell that they fought at the gathering because suddenly the energy shifts. Everybody's uncomfortable. It's just something happened. He felt like she could easily form close bonds with male employees. So there were rumors that he's constantly accusing her of cheating on him with male colleagues. He wouldn't even let her go shopping with female friends without his presence there. So he convinces her to come to Google. And he's like, it's actually going to be a lot more convenient for us too, because we could commute together and like we have the same perks. Like it's just, and Google's better. Everybody likes working at Google more, which again, valid, but like, Meanwhile, Ivy misses out on a potential promotion, starts a whole new job. Tony is out there telling friends, while this is happening, she's giving up all of this. Tony is out there telling friends, I didn't even really want to get married to begin with. I just kind of felt pressured because everybody around me is getting married. Everybody around me is buying a house. Everybody's having a kid. So I just thought that that's what I have to do. And I just thought the person that I would do that with is Ivy because she's the one that I'm dating. The whole time during Tony and Ivy's marriage, he's obsessed with the idea that she's just not good enough for him. And it's really bizarre. Like, he talks to his friends about how Ivy does not make as much as him. He also talks about how Ivy doesn't make as much as some of his friends' wives. But the only reason that she's not even making as much as his friends' wives is because she moved to Google instead of staying at Amazon, where she was up for that promotion. And Google engineers, they're ranked from L3 to L10. So like, Ivy was an L3. Tony was an L4 engineer. L10 is the highest.
Bro.
Yeah, so he's not even like an L9 and she's an L3. And total comp for an L3 engineer is still probably around like 220,000 a year. L4 is around 312,000 a year. So it's not like he's making, I mean, it is a lot of money, but it's not enough to be like, we're just getting by, you need to make more money. It doesn't make any sense. A mutual friend of theirs says whenever Tony would say those things to Ivy, she would just be down, and you could tell. It's not like she would have an outburst. She never lashed out, which nobody would be upset with her if she did, but she just would feel really hopeless is the feeling. Ivy's friend Wang and Wang's husband know all of this. So the morning after the most uncomfortable dinner, Wang and her husband are both texting and calling both Tony and Ivy like, hey, last night was awkward, but like, are you okay? Hello? They're getting no response. And it's making Wang really uncomfortable. I mean, they clearly feel so uncomfortable that she's like, get up. Like, we're gonna go drive to their house again and see if they're okay. So this is like the second time in less than 24 hours. They're like, I'm gonna go to her house and we're gonna see what's going on. When they get there, it's the same as last night. So Tony and Ivy's cars are parked outside in the driveway and they go to ring the doorbell. Nobody is answering. Wang is like pushing her face up against the window and she feels like she sees a figure inside, but they're not moving. So she's like, it seems like a shadow. It seems like the shadow of a person, but they're so immobile. She's like, I don't know what that is. And I was just inside that house. I don't think that they had a random piece of furniture that looks like that in there, but she's so confused. She doesn't know what to do. And so she does something that is, I do have to note, I think a lot of traditionally Chinese people are not the quickest to call the police.
Yeah,
I think they're not the quickest to escalate, right? But I think that goes to show like Wang is feeling very uncomfortable. She's like, no, this is not just me seeing like a figure in the window and I'm like hallucinating. She's like, something's weird. And I think the reason that, okay, this is like some nuance and context. I'm not saying that this is what I would do or you should do in this situation, but I think for these types of friend groups, when they're all in tech and they all have these very prestigious jobs, to call the police and to cause a commotion.
Do you know if they're citizens or they're with
They're
some sort of...
not. They're all with an
visa?
HB1 visa.
Right. So involving any legal system will be very complicated. Yeah.
And then imagine like the police show up and your friends are fine. It's almost like, okay, I'm so sorry. I was so dramatic. And I think most friends would be okay with it. I think Ivy would have been fine with it, but it's just, it takes a lot to call the police in this type of situation. And Wang is like, no, I need to call the police. Like something is weird. And I'm telling you, something is weird.
But she doesn't know what she's seeing. Like, does she, what, like you say she sees a figure or sees something?
She thought she saw a figure. It's unclear. And she's like, but I just feel like somebody's inside. But they're not getting the door and their cars are outside. And I thought I saw a figure, but it was very immobile. So it's not moving. So I'm like, I can't tell you it's one of them, but I feel like somebody's inside the house.
Okay.
So like, why would they not open the door if somebody's inside the house? And even last night after their fight, they opened the door. So it's not like they're not going to open the door and be like, hey, why are you here? We're fighting. Don't come unannounced. At least Ivy would open the door and be like, not right now. Like, let me call you later. But nobody's opening the door. She calls the police. Police come. They're searching through and they're like going through the house. They're doing a sweep because it's a wellness check. So they're, searching around the perimeter of the house first. They walk to the backyard and they also see a figure. So they're like, okay, something's a little strange. Let's break through the back door.
On the main floor?
Yeah, they see like movement.
Oh,
so they're like, okay, this is weird. Let's kick in the back door. And then they don't see that movement anymore on the first floor. They go up to the second floor and they see Tony on his knees, covered in blood. Like, I feel like covered is a word that gets thrown around in a lot of cases, but he was like drenched in blood. The whole room was drenched in blood. This house was dubbed the murder house in the Bay Area because that whole room, the carpets, the walls, everything had blood splatter everywhere, to a degree where it almost doesn't make sense. The way that the police describe it, it almost seems like, how can there be that much blood? And he's on his knees and he's got his hands in the air and he's just staring at Ivy's body. Ivy is laying on the ground next to him and she has like dried, matted blood all over her face. Her face is unrecognizable. And I think the part that was the most alarming for authorities is her face is not unrecognizable through, typically bullet wounds will make a face unrecognizable. There's no gun involved. There's no knife involved. There's no weapon involved. Tony had punched his wife to death with his bare hands. And she's unrecognizable from the force of his punching. He punched her repeatedly until she died. And when she was gone and he was sure that she's dead, he continues punching her. 2 months before Ivy's murder, Tony has a lunch date at Google. Google has those cafeterias and he's going to be meeting his white rose, his ex-girlfriend, Zhang, the ex-girlfriend. She's visiting from Seattle, which like I said, she works at Waymo and she just ended her engagement to her fiance who worked at Google DeepMind. She's technically single, but she knows that Tony is married to Ivy. She knows this. This is not like up for debate. He's not like, oh, we're separated right now. She knows that he is actively married. And during this Google cafeteria date where Tony works at Google.
Is she here for a work trip or personal trip?
Personal trip for her birthday.
Oh.
So she's like, I'm going to go to California for my birthday because I want to see a concert. And he's like, hey, you should come to the fucking Google cafeteria and meet me for lunch. This is where Tony works. This is where his wife Ivy works.
Yeah.
And he's just meeting up with his ex-girlfriend, eating lunch. It's audacious. It's ballsy. It's likely the two of them are sitting there reminiscing about their past. I mean, there's got to be people who know both of them who is like, hey, I don't know why your husband's having lunch with some random girl in the cafeteria.
Yeah, that's crazy. What made him feel so ballsy of doing that?
There are multiple speculations. One, I think that he just genuinely does not care about his wife. Second, I think that he was worried that if he left Google campus to go meet Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, Ivy would have found out. Maybe they have Find My Location on, maybe something like that. And then third, he's still trying to convince Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, to transfer to SF to join Google. He's like, I'll refer you. He keeps trying to, in the Google Doc, he's like, I can get you a referral. I can get you a job. Why work at Waymo when you can come work here?
So this is like him showing her the work environment.
Yeah. And they're reminiscing about their past, which their past relationship is just, it's okay. I mean, they both started dating in high school at Chengdu No. 7 High School. They both get into Tsinghua University, but Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, is the type where she just seems like she really likes breaking up with him because he's obsessed with her. So she doesn't really, and I mean this with as much disrespect as I could probably have for this type of situation. She seems like the type of girl that will break up with him because she knows that he's always going to be around. But the minute that he starts loosening his obsession with her or starts dating somebody else, she starts going in and feeding him some attention, brings him back, and then she pulls away. And then the minute that he starts diverting his attention, she goes back and says some things. That's the energy that she gives me. And honestly, she is kind of a bitch, even the way that she testifies. I don't think she's the villain in this story because ultimately at the end of the day, Tony is the villain in this story. But she's also like, everyone is like, she's crazy.
Yeah, for her to show up in even at the Google cafeteria, knowing that, you know, his wife works here too.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Even if you know, like she knows what's going to happen if the wife walks in.
Mm-hmm. And she is the type that she kind of is just keeping Tony around because he might be her best bet. So she's back because her best bet ended up getting arrested for soliciting sex workers at the massage parlor. So the way that it happened was she just keeps breaking up with him all throughout high school and college. Then Tony and Ivy go to UC San Diego. She goes to Carnegie Mellon for her master's. So they all come to the US around the same time, but they're in different areas. So she's at Carnegie Mellon, she's in Pennsylvania, and then he's in California. Naturally, they're not keeping in touch as frequently, but she'll reach out when she feels like he's not reaching out. But then she meets her fiance. Better background than Tony's, wealthier family than Tony's. He got sent to this international school that would cost his family $400,000 to get his undergrad degree.
What kind of school is that?
It was like a whatever school.
Oh, so they just cash in.
Yeah, just throwing money.
Okay.
And so she starts dating him. Tony finds out that she's dating a guy that is above his caliber, and he almost forces himself to move on. And he immediately starts dating Ivy. And a lot of people think that the relationship escalated so quickly. Nobody said it, but they felt like he was using Ivy to try to make
Yeah.
Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, jealous, trying to
Totally.
comfort himself. It just felt like a rebound situation, but nobody would question it. So Tony is the one that actually pursues Ivy aggressively at UC San Diego. And the whole time, he's still kind of talking to Jiang, the ex-girlfriend. Eventually, they go to SF. Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, and her fiance go to Seattle. And again, I just want to reiterate, all four of them work at Alphabet. And this is really important later because Tony has a full-blown meltdown about all of this. So all of them technically work for the same parent company, even though they're in different cities and they work for different companies. Now, Tony and Ivy get married. Tony explains to Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, it's mainly because, quote, the girl wants to get married. So he's like, I don't even really, and then you didn't want to get married, and the girl wants to get married, so I'm just going to get married. They get married, they purchase a house, putting $500,000 down, they finance the rest through a mortgage, they get 2 cats, and Jiang, the ex-girlfriend in Seattle, gets engaged. Then they start reminiscing here and there about their relationship. She breaks the engagement because her fiance gets arrested. Then she comes up with this whole Google Doc, sends it to him. And then after they've been talking for like a month on the Google Doc, this is October 2023, she starts being like, you know what? I am going to make a trip to California for my birthday, which is in November. And I'm going to go there for a concert. And if you want to meet up with me, then let's meet up.
Wait, so she sent this Google Doc to him
Yes.
instead of texting him
Yeah.
or emailing him. It's very clear. And she reached out secretly to chat.
Yeah. And a Google Doc is crazy. Like if you want to say, send a goodbye message, convert it to a PDF, email it,
Yeah.
mail a letter. Why are you sharing a Google Doc?
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah. And even if I get a Google Doc, I don't think about talking to someone
Yeah.
through Google Doc. I would just,
Text them and be like,
Yeah.
okay, that was weird.
yeah.
But yeah. So they start texting during this Google Doc. And a month later, a month in November, during Tony and Ivy's wedding anniversary, Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, travels to California to attend this concert for her birthday. Before leaving Seattle, she makes plans to see Tony while she's in California. And she admits the whole reason of wanting to even go to California to this specific concert was because she wanted to see Tony. She says that straight up. And that's how she ends up at the Google cafeteria eating lunch with her high school college ex-boyfriend. 2 days later, when Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, is going to fly back home to Seattle, they meet once again, and he offers to drive her to the airport. She's like, okay, fine. So he drives her to the airport, and he wants to say goodbye. Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, concocts a story that nobody believes on the witness stand when she testifies later, and she says that he kissed her on the cheek, and she felt it was very uncomfortable. She did not consent to that.
What?
Yeah. But then later stories come out from an airport worker who was like, no, I remember that couple. And they were just like lingering the whole time, just like hanging out, lingering. So they're just saying, I mean, maybe she didn't consent to a kiss on the cheek, but it just like the whole energy was weird. Like they were all over each other kind of vibe.
Bro, you did so much worse than like that kiss, I feel like, right?
Yeah. So he kisses her on the cheek and it was just, she claims it was not okay. And she was just utterly surprised by it. They part ways, and it feels like Tony doesn't even care about Ivy finding out because she does not express to him in that moment when he kisses her on the cheek, like, that was not okay. That was uncomfortable. You shouldn't have done that. And again, this is not me saying like, oh, this was consensual. It's just weird. It's weird. The airport employee is like, what are you talking about? Like, you guys were kind of already, but like, you know what? Whatever. And she's like, no, I was highly uncomfortable. And there's a lot of reasons that she might want to say this in the courthouse. Anyway, she says she doesn't tell him at the airport that made her uncomfortable. So she just like leaves. He's under the impression things went really well because he kissed her on the cheek, they hung out, they spent time together. He goes back home. He doesn't even seem stressed about the idea that his wife is going to find out that he was just at the airport, even though it's around their 2nd year anniversary. He's busy with his ex-girlfriend. And also, the timing itself does not seem coincidental. Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, came to California for a concert for her birthday. Her birthday is November 21st. Tony and Ivy got married November 22nd. A lot of people think that Tony intentionally timed the wedding to coincide with Jiang, the ex-girlfriend's birthday, so she would always have to think about him and his marriage during her birthday.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Just the way that he's so obsessed over her.
Yeah. When Tony gets back home from the airport, Ivy is waiting for him. She saw his location at the airport, and she knew from social media that Jiang, the ex-girlfriend, was in town. Tony was at the airport. She's putting it together pretty quickly. She's a very intelligent woman, and that tells her all she needs to know. But she's very pissed off about the fact that when he walks in, coming back from the airport, like she's already upset. He walks in wearing the jacket that she bought him.
Who?
Ivy. So Ivy had bought Tony a jacket, and he wore it to drop off his ex-girlfriend at the airport. They start arguing. She suggests, like, why don't we just get a divorce? Like, we're literally tormenting each other. It doesn't even make sense. If you love your ex-girlfriend so much, go be with her. Don't involve me. And she had disclosed a lot of this information to her friend Wang. So she's like, I just genuinely don't get it. Like, why are you involving me? Because this is happening in November. So this is 2 months before her death. She's like, I don't know why you have to involve me. Just go be with her. Like, why sneak around? Go be with the love of your life. I don't care. Like, let's get a divorce. So Tony's like, okay, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. Except within a few hours into their fight, Tony gets a message from Jung, the ex-girlfriend, where she lands in Seattle and she's like, hey, by the way, I was really uncomfortable about that airport kiss and like, I never want to see you again.
What?
I don't know. Tony realizes that he can no longer get back together with Jung, the ex-girlfriend. His only option in his mind is now to grovel and beg for Ivy to come back. I don't know why being single is not an option.
Yeah.
I don't know why he has to terrorize Ivy. I don't know. He's just not the type to break up with someone and do something as big as separate their assets, sell the house. He likes to have a bigger exit plan is how people describe him. It seems like he's only willing to divorce Ivy if that means he's gonna, and he's gonna get something out of the divorce.
Right.
Which is maybe the ex-girlfriend. He gets to marry her. But he starts making up excuses about how this airport was the last true goodbye. Like him saying goodbye one last time. They will never ever be in each other's lives again. He like just wanted to get closure from his ex-girlfriend. He never mentions this kiss. Never mentions it. Or the fact that Jung, the ex-girlfriend, was like, I never want to see you again. He never mentions it. He was like, I just dropped her off at the airport so we could get final closure. And Ivy decides that she is going to forgive him one last time. So for the next few months, they continue posting regularly on their cat's Instagram page, showing a very cute home life, at least from the outside perspective. They're watching TV, cooking. Tony is wearing his wedding ring in the pictures. Everything appears to be normal, except Tony starts feeling this really extreme pressure and paranoia at work. So apparently he made this mistake and his manager has been micromanaging him since. On top of that, this is right around the time where every tech company is just doing massive layoffs. I will say that neither the department that Tony nor Ivy worked in were experiencing any layoffs. So he just seemed very paranoid and unstable.
You think the fact that Jung rejected him played a big role in his...
Yes. And he starts feeling this paranoia that Jung, the ex-girlfriend, is going to report him for an HR violation because they all work under the same parent company. And that's why it's very important. I guess like this was a huge thought in his mind. So I guess if maybe Jung had worked for Meta or Amazon, he wouldn't have cared as much. But he's saying we all work under the same parent company and all she has to do is put in a complaint.
Where did this thought come from?
He just had this thought.
And how do we know this?
He eventually confesses to Ivy because he's so paranoid that he's going to get an HR violation and get fired because he kissed her on the cheek and that she's going to report him for it and get him fired. He tells her in January, I've been so stressed because this is what happened at the airport goodbye. I kissed her on the cheek and now I'm scared.
That is really odd.
Yeah, so for 2 months, I don't know if, I don't want to say anything accusatory, but like maybe Jung mentioned it.
Oh.
Maybe she's kind of has the personality where she might do something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was a lot of like conversation of because we work all under the same parent company, it's going to be a lot more serious. Versus like if she worked at Meta and was like, hey, this guy that works at Google kissed me on the cheek and I didn't want it. It's not that big of a deal. I say it's not that big of a deal in terms of I don't think a massive corporation is going to say, you know what? I'm going to fucking fire you. Mm-hmm. So he's like, oh, this is a huge, I mean, imagine a colleague kisses you on the cheek without your consent. Like that's huge. Mm-hmm. So he starts having this paranoia and he's freaking out about it. He finally discloses it to Ivy in January. And she's like, okay, like that's honestly my last straw. I want out. She starts digging and she finds the Google Doc.
So you're saying they indeed stopped talking after that trip?
Yeah.
Jung, okay.
Mm-hmm. Or at least not in a good way. Like maybe there were messages of like, no, I hate you. I don't know. There was no affair. There was no continuous messages of what if.
That's so interesting. So Jung came over, has some hope of maybe connecting with him again. And then after that little trip, she's like, nah, I don't want you.
Yeah.
But he was like, oh my gosh, she's back.
Mm-hmm. So weird.
Yeah.
So he he tells Ivy, she finds the Google Doc. Not only did he take her to the airport, he constantly lied about, and the Google cafeteria. She's finding out that he met her at the Google cafeteria, her workplace that she didn't even want to work at. She left Amazon to work at Google for him. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? She finds out through the Google Doc that he had asked Jung to get married and buy a house in SF, remember? And then she was like, no. So then he asked her. He wears the jacket that she bought him to bring his ex to the airport, kisses her on the cheek, lies about it. And all of this is happening around their wedding anniversary back in November. So she's reading all of this and she's like, okay. She writes in the Google Doc, I don't even know who you are, Tony. Like, I thought I knew who you were. I don't know who you are. I don't even know who you really are. Like, my life is a lie. She comments, and Jung, the ex-girlfriend, responds. And instead of apologizing for reaching out to Tony, which is what any normal, morally upstanding person would do, no morally upstanding person would even send this Google Doc in the first place or meet someone at the Google cafeteria, but they would say something along the lines of like, listen, I've had a massive lapse in judgment because I was going through a traumatic experience and I fucked up your life and I will forever owe it to you, or something along those lines. But instead, Jung, the ex-girlfriend, has the nerve to write back, I know how you feel. When I was dating Tony in college, he would always reach out to his other exes or other girls. So it was like a really difficult time for me. The mistress is trying to sympathize with the wife vibe. She's the one that reached out to Tony. Nobody in Ivy's position would ever want sympathy from Jung, the ex-girlfriend of all people. Like, it's just uncalled for. You're the one that asked the married man to meet up and you asked him to take you to the airport for your birthday trip. Like, now suddenly you want to talk about how shitty he is and try to bond? Then Jung, the ex-girlfriend, has the audacity to write in the Google Doc, Ivy, if I were your friend, I would tell you to leave the relationship. She's like, if you want friendly advice from me, you should leave Tony.
That's crazy. And Tony can read this too,
yeah.
Right? Wow.
And that is when Ivy comments, I hate you. I hate all of you. February 9th, 2024 is Tony's very first court appearance. It's his plea hearing, and he shows up with a helmet on. It's a human restraint soft shell protective helmet, usually for those who have displayed self-exit tendencies. He's wearing a Santa Clara Sheriff Main Jail shirt. He's wearing an orange jumpsuit, which in every district, the colors of their jumpsuits are very different. Different colors have different meanings. So in Santa Clara, orange is standard for general population inmates. Red is for those with a history of violence or high-risk behavior who require isolation. Yellow, and so he's wearing orange and then a yellow on top of it. The one Tony is spotted wearing is typically mental health observation patients is yellow, which makes sense given the helmet that he's wearing. Yeah, he's wearing the helmet. He's walking out behind his attorney. And this is an attorney that his parents paid for because his parents are very well off. And this is another very infuriating part about this trial is Ivy's an only child. I think there's a lot, like a lot of nuance and context that maybe Chinese netizens and Chinese viewers will understand more. So, I mean, China was going through the one-child policy and Ivy's parents had put everything into Ivy.
Yes.
And she was the success story. And then she's just gone. And they couldn't even get to the US because the US would not give them a visa to come.
So the parents didn't come?
No, they tried so hard. I think eventually they were able to, but they had to spend so much money trying to jump through hoops, getting attorneys involved just to try to come to the US to attend these trials. Tony's parents had no problem. They came to the US and they retained an attorney in SF who is known for representing lots of violent men who specifically love beating their partners. He's like known to be careful with my words here, but he's known to defend a lot of people who are accused of DV. Tony's wearing a helmet. He's almost like trying to hide behind his attorney, which doesn't work because he's 6'2" and he just looks dumb. He also lost a patch of hair. Could have been from attempted self-exit, but it's unclear. So a lot of Chinese netizens who were in the courthouse were like, there's just like a bald spot and it doesn't look natural. So it looks like maybe shaved. It looks like something's happening, but the helmet was in the way. His attorney later confirmed that yes, he did sustain a head injury, but could not provide further details. A lot of people think that they're just trying to lay the groundwork for a mental health defense, trying to argue diminished capacity, seeking to establish that he needs psychological evaluation and treatment rather than standard incarceration. When he walks out, he has this very blank and timid body language. However, I will say that his gaze looks like he doesn't look out of it. His eyes look sharp. He looks like he is in a decent state. He's analyzing, he's observing, he's taking it in. And during the 3 days, oh, and I'm sorry, I keep referencing it as a trial. It's not a trial, it's a preliminary hearing. So it's a 3-day preliminary hearing, but we still get lots of testimony. So we have the police that went to the house, they're testifying, and then you have the ex-girlfriend who's testifying, and it's pretty much for the judge to determine when the formal trial, if there is enough for a formal trial, which there is, it just hasn't been set yet.
Oh, still?
Yeah. So it's still ongoing, but yeah, I mean, which I think it's highly doubtful that they're going to have a successful insanity plea. I think that we can kind of predict the outcome of this case because the evidence is just so plentiful in this case that, yeah. The police, they testify of what it was like going through the house, seeing him in that state. I think during the trial, I would imagine that some variation of body camera footage would come out. I don't think a lot of the graphic imagery would come out, of course, and neither should it, but I think more of that would happen. The police talk about how Tony's arm was so severely swollen, it was almost purple. And I think that just, they're not saying that as in like, oh, he also has injuries, it was a two-sided fight. Like, that's not what they're indicating. They're saying that that is how extreme the punches were, because he kept going to the point where he is bruising up the entirety of his arm with the force of his punching. His left arm has some scratch marks, so there are defensive wounds that Ivy had left, but all of them are superficial. None of them would have produced really any blood that's covering him and the walls and the carpet and the door. I mean, there is blood covering every square inch of that room, really. They described how Ivy's face is completely unrecognizable, and Tony just had this very vacant look in his face. He was really calm when authorities asked him, "What happened to your hand?" And he responded coldly, "I punched my wife." When? Yesterday. There was a suitcase. It's unclear. I mean, it's unclear if he would have fled if Wang and her husband didn't show up. It's unclear. But there was a suitcase. It was like haphazardly packed. Some say that it didn't seem like he had any thought to flee. And the autopsy concluded that Ivy was killed by severe blunt force trauma to the head, resulting from repeated and brutal blows. The manner of death was obviously homicide. There was severe skull damage, facial swelling, a broken nose bridge, disfigurement to her face that made her unrecognizable, widespread bruising and contusions on her face, arms, legs, and torso. There were no really strong defensive wounds other than a few scratches on his arm, so there was not persistent with a prolonged struggle. But even after Ivy is unconscious and dead, Tony does keep beating her aggressively, just like blow after blow without stopping. Something to note is that Tony is pretty tall. He's 6'2". Ivy is 5'4". She is also reportedly very thin. I mean, he doesn't strike me as like a gym buff. It's not like he's so muscular, but he's clearly much larger than Ivy and can easily overpower her. Ivy is maybe around 100 pounds, if that. The police present the evidence that they have so far to try and bring this case to trial. They show ring footage camera. This is before Wang and her husband show up to the house for that awkward dinner. So you can hear fighting from the front door ring camera. So they're fighting inside the house. You can kind of hear it. At one point, one of the cats escape. So I don't know if one of them was trying to leave the house, but a cat runs out. So now they're trying to bring the cat back inside, and they're arguing back and forth of who's leaving, who's not leaving. It's clear that the emotions are really high. Everything is in Chinese. So a lot of the Chinese netizens and people who were in the courthouse were trying to decipher what was being said, because again, it's a preliminary hearing. So people haven't translated it professionally of like, oh, this is exactly every single word that was said, and like this is the essence of the fight. Some people are reporting Ivy doesn't want Tony to leave, and she's like trying to get him to stay. Other people are saying that Tony doesn't want Ivy to leave. It just seems either way, there's a very volatile fight happening inside of that house. Eventually, Tony is spotted leaving the house. Ivy is in a state of distress. She does call her parents, which she never does. She usually follows the very Chinese principle of like only report good news, not the bad news. Ivy's parents called Tony's parents. And because Ivy's parents are like, I don't know what's going on over there. They call Tony's parents. Tony's parents are like, he hasn't even talked to us in like a month. They're trying to get in contact with Tony and Ivy. Neither of them are picking up. That's when they call Wang and her husband. Tony comes back about 11 minutes before Wang and her husband show up.
We don't know where he went.
No. And then they present the cat footage to take this to trial. So that's really, I mean, they have other evidence. Obviously, they have the autopsy. They have probably, I Actually, I don't know. I imagine Tony's the type to not say anything without an attorney present, because the police did indicate he just like would not say why. All he really said was like, I punched my wife.
But in the cat footage, what was happening? You were saying that there was a saw, there was some kind of motion. What was all that?
So the full breakdown, 12:21 a.m., Ivy appears at the back of the kitchen and she seems to be closing up. 1:04 a.m., the lights turn off. She heads upstairs. 4:43 a.m., Tony appears and his shirt is covered in blood. He's in the kitchen.
So you're saying when he appeared, it's already...
She's gone. And then 5:16 a.m., he appears again, and this time his right hand is more visibly swollen, apparently with the blood. 5:20 a.m., he's holding an electric circular saw in his hand up to his neck, but he doesn't turn it on or use it. And I don't think that he has any, from what it seems from all the reporting of people who heard about the footage, it does not appear that he was putting on a show for the cat camera. It doesn't seem like this was something that he was performing. Because that was a huge question of like, is he performing?
So he bring this saw to his neck.
Yes.
Never turned on.
No.
Like very quickly.
Yeah. But again, that's not, I do want to clarify that that's not indicative of him not being in a right state of mind. That's just, he probably doesn't want to deal with the consequences, but he also can't self-exit. Like this is not saying, oh, he's out of his mind. And then again, he goes to the kitchen at around 8 in the morning. And then he tries to put a large knife to his neck, but he doesn't do anything yet again. So we can imagine that between 1:04 a.m. and 4:43 a.m., Tony brutally beat his wife to death with his bare fists, and then eventually tried to self-exit, but it didn't work. There was a suitcase. Maybe he thought about fleeing, but that didn't work. And then he was found in, quote, a catatonic state. So a lot of people, because, I mean, we don't know why he's done it because the trial has yet to formally begin, although I don't know when it's going to. But a lot of people have started coming up with their reasonings of why this happened because it doesn't make sense. Even if he were to, I mean, it's not that much reputational harm to get a divorce and split assets. None of this makes sense to people that are, I guess, in a right state of mind. So people have come up with just some bizarre reasonings. Some people are saying it was probably the layoffs and the intense pressure of work because both of them are on HB1 visas and he snapped. That's what some people are saying. I just think that it's highly unlikely. It doesn't make sense to me. I think that's like a really weird reasoning for something like this. It's weird. They're both highly educated individuals. Tony is highly educated. His parents come from money. Like he would have been fine. Even if he had to go back to China, he would have been fine. The ex-girlfriend also goes up to testify, and I would say that her testimony is just a testimony of convenience in my feeling and my honest opinion, my personal opinion. There are times where she distinctly remembers how she felt in certain moments, and then she'll completely forget what she told Tony or things that she said in the Google document. As per the Google document, she says that, yeah, I don't mind sharing the whole thing to the world. I just want to make sure that it is professionally translated into English so that nothing is taken out of translation, nothing is misconstructed, misconstrued, like nothing is miscommunicated. It just needs to be done well. And then later she petitions to the judge like, this is my personal diary and I don't need it to be public, which they accept. So this Google Doc has not been made public. I mean, that's as of right now during these preliminary trial hearings, but who knows for the actual trial if it's going to become public.
So they only share a few quotes? Is that why?
Yeah. And she was asked directly about certain quotes. And then when it becomes inconvenient, because people are wondering, like in the Google Doc, were you making it a big thing about wanting Ivy gone? Were you just saying things like, oh, if she were gone, we could be together? And this is not anybody saying that she instigated this or that she is the cause of this, because Tony is the only one that did this. But I think people are just trying to get the full picture of what's happened. And again, I don't like the ex-girlfriend. I don't think that she is somebody that I would personally be friends with or want to have in any personal or professional circle of mine in any capacity. However, she is nowhere near as vile as Tony.
Yeah.
So there are some people who hate her more than they hate Tony. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. She is a bizarre individual with my personal opinion, a low moral code, but she's not Tony. Tony is still the one that did all of this allegedly. She keeps arguing in court that this Google Doc was just like a delete key for her. She just wanted to get out her feelings and delete it. But they're like, if you wanted to delete it, why'd you send it to Tony? Why didn't you just delete it? She also asked him to meet multiple times, according to her in the testimony. And one person states, how is this in any way deleting the past? It's literally the complete opposite. She's just stringing Tony along to feed her own ego, fishing for sympathy and attention because her own life is unraveling. A lot of people say in Mandarin, there's a saying that it's along the lines of like, you know, you're a homewrecker and you still choose to be a homewrecker. So I think it's like this essence of you give people grace if they had no idea that the person was married. But the minute you know and you still do it, like you chose this. Also, to make it a little bit worse, she does get married while all of this preliminary hearings are taking place to her best friend's ex-boyfriend.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Is what has been reported by netizens. I mean, I don't know them personally, so I can't tell you if they were really best friends, but people who knew them have come out to say, no, it was literally her best friend's boyfriend. Yeah.
Wow.
So people have commented, she always keeps an eye on other people's bowls. There's a classic saying that we are not afraid of thieves stealing, we are afraid of thieves coveting. There is a lot of, again, cultural nuance that I think is really hard for me to try and describe, but people don't think that Tony would throw away his life unless Ivy did something really bad, is what a lot of, not a lot, but a chunk of Chinese netizens believe. Because I think in a lot of East Asian cultures, this is like the dream life, to have this type of educational background, to come from a wealthy family. Nobody really gets that. So they just cannot grasp the concept that he would do something like this. And this is like, I wholeheartedly disagree and fundamentally want to smack the back of someone's head if they believe this. But it's an odd thing, but they think it. And so they've naturally come up with all of these reasons of what Ivy could have done. And the first comes down to Vince. Vince is like a UCSD lore. Remember I told you about Vince? I heard about Vince like
What does
years
Vince have
ago.
to do with this?
Yeah, so Vince is I don't even know how real Vince is. I think he's real. I don't know. A few years ago, I was sent this like PDF of this guy named Vince who went to UCSD. He's a Chinese exchange student. And this PDF file was so graphic. You saw pictures that he was like a sexual deviant. He would turn cameras on in classrooms, like at UCSD during Zoom classrooms, and he would be having intimate relations with people's partners, girlfriends. There was a rumor that he had such intense intimate relations with a pregnant woman that it caused her to have a prolapse in her back region. There were rumors that he got off on cutting off external private parts that men had, and he would eat them with noodles. And I saw a picture of what appeared to be one in a bowl of noodles, though it's unclear if that is connected to Vince, though it's unclear if that is a real picture. This has been like, I think a lot of Chinese Americans know the whole Vince lore, or at least have heard of Vince from UCSD.
So people just connected that just because she went to UCSD?
So people started manufacturing screenshots of her being in chat rooms with Vince. And then people started coming out with fake testimony saying, oh, I actually saw her in one of the PDF files and she was one of the women that was with Vince. This is just not true. This is literally slanderous. Like, it's not, none of this is true. People were proving it because they were saying, oh, she was responding in this group chat. And then people who were in the group chat is like, no, I have the records. Also, like, why are you in the group chat? I don't know. Wow. But they were like, no, she's not in this group chat. So that was like the first round of rumors, was that he found out that she was involved with Vince, who everybody knows Vince, especially if you went to UCSD, and he snapped. They're like, that makes sense, which no, it doesn't. None of this makes sense. And none of it is true. Then the whole situation goes to, oh, she was a gold digger. Ivy was a gold digger. She was having an affair. She had an affair with her Chinese manager at Amazon, and that's why she was up for a promotion, which, by the way, is also categorically false. Her manager was not even Chinese. He was an Indian man. So, like, none of this story even makes sense. None of it is factually accurate. There's no evidence to back it up. There's so many holes in every story. It's factually incorrect. But they're saying that she was having an affair with her manager at Amazon. That's why he found out. She had to move to Google. And then she started having an affair with a higher up at Google and was trying to get a role at the Switzerland Google office because that's where that higher up was going to be. None of this has any evidence. None of it. I just don't know how she is equally as accomplished, but people are like, she was using him as a stepping stone. For what? For what? A stepping stone to what? Then a lot of people started arguing that maybe Ivy was aggressive and abusive first, and Tony just snapped after being berated. And a lot of this comes from the fact that this is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I think it's a very small group of people, but when the news starts circulating, a lot of Chinese netizens are trying to come up with this theory. And they settle on the idea that Tony is from northern China and Ivy is from southern China. What the hell does that mean, right? So there's a stereotype that men and women from northern China are typically taller. So they're like, Tony's tall, he must be from northern China. And then she's from southern China, and women from southern China, some people say, are more aggressive in relationships. This whole generalization is very goofy, other than the fact that, okay, like one person is tall. Like none of this makes sense. It's akin to saying, oh, the perpetrator was probably from New York City because they're a lot meaner and a lot more confrontational than maybe somewhere like Kentucky. It's like, well, everybody can be mean. That has nothing to do with it. It's dumb. But people are saying, oh, well, he's from northern China. She's from southern China. Maybe she was super abusive. And then that gets turned on its head. This already dumb argument becomes even dumber because it's revealed that Ivy is the one from northern China and Tony is the one from Sichuan, which is like the middle southern part of China. But then they're like, wait, he's from Sichuan, China? So there's almost like a meme in China where men from Sichuan, China, in the most endearing way, like it's seen as a very positive thing, they uplift their wives a lot. And there's lots of skits of how they're so scared of their wives and they do a lot of the cooking and cleaning at home. And so people are like, oh, well, he's from Sichuan, China, which means that he probably was uplifting Ivy and maybe she was super domineering and super aggressive and he collapsed under her pressure and he lashed out.
The victim blaming is just so vile.
Yeah, and everyone that knows Ivy is coming forward and is like, you guys are fucking idiots. Like, I don't even know what to say. It's all lies. Like, it's just so dumb. So while awaiting trial, it appears that Tony has gained quite a bit of weight, which people are really annoyed by. It just looks like and this might not be true, but I think there is this feeling of like, look at him living comfortably. While after what he's done, like it just isn't sitting right with a lot of people. He has high paid attorneys representing him. And there hasn't been a lot of press on this case, at least not in the United States, but there has been a lot of coverage on Chinese social media, on Chinese news networks, Chinese forums. And that's why we utilized our Chinese researchers, even though this is a case that's taking place in the US. And it seems that her parents couldn't make it to the preliminary hearing. I don't know if they've been able to make it since before the trial. I don't know how that's going to work. I can't imagine that the US won't give them a visa for the trial itself, but you never know with the climate these days. It did take 2 years to sell their house, but it was not devalued by much. It sold for around $2 million again. And Ivy's family has written in Chinese social media, Ivy has left us forever. Her beauty and kindness were frozen at the age of 27. We're heartbroken over the loss of our beloved daughter. With nowhere to express our grief, through this platform we wish to preserve a peaceful space for her, undisturbed and unjudged. May she protect herself in heaven, no longer sad and far from violence. A lot of people say the fact that people are victim blaming is just atrocious, but Ivy was it's crazy I think it's crazy victim blaming in any situation, but even more so with Ivy because a lot of netizens are saying this makes everybody even more depressed because Ivy did everything right. They say Ivy was a normal girl with a healthy sense of right and wrong. She dated seriously. She got married. When she discovered his infidelity, she tried to set boundaries. And when she realized things couldn't be fixed, she planned to leave. Like all of these things are the right choices for a girl, a woman. A lot of people have then come to the conclusion in China, and a lot of people have been agreeing with the sentiment of marriage is not a necessity. People are trying to give tips to other women saying, if you do marry someone who loves you. Like we need to stop pressuring women to get married because they hit a certain age. Because if you pressure a man who doesn't love you into marriage, even if you do get married, you never know what's going to happen. Not that Ivy pressured, but I think it's just the climate in China or a lot of places where as you get older, a lot of people are like, why are you not married? You're almost 35, you're 40, you're 30. But what are your thoughts on this case? Have you heard about it? When the trial happens, when and if the trial happens, we're going to cover it. But let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts? Stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.